Marie Osmond spent 50 years smiling on camera while hiding something painful. At 8 years old, something happened backstage that changed how she saw her own body forever. By 13, she was starving herself to 93 pounds. Producers called her fat at 103. Now at 65, internet videos claim she looks like a completely different person. Some say she's aging backward. Others say she's not even the real Marie. She finally admitted what she's done to her face. But the procedures are only part of the story. The real reason goes back to a secret she kept buried for decades. Marie Osmond was born Olive Marie Osmond on October 13, 1959, in Ogden, Utah. She was the 9th child and the only girl in a strict Mormon family led by Olive and George Osmond. Her home was filled with music, but it was also filled with pressure. Even before she understood what fame meant, she understood discipline. Hardship lived in that house from the beginning. Her older brothers, Verl and Tom, were born profoundly deaf at a time when doctors told her parents to place them in institutions. Her mother refused. She taught them to read lips. She taught them to speak. She even taught them to tap dance. What could have broken the family became their fire. Marie grew up watching that strength, and it shaped her in ways she would only understand years later. By the time she was 3, she was already on national television. She appeared on The Andy Williams Show as the youngest Osmond, standing in a frilly dress while her brothers harmonized beside her. Andy Williams saw something special in them during an audition in Pasadena and brought them into the spotlight. He even coached Marie himself, pushing her to build lung power by swimming underwater so she could hold strong notes without fear. Fame arrived quickly after that. The family left Utah for Los Angeles, chasing opportunity. Rehearsals became routine. Childhood slowly slipped away. In 1970, her brothers scored a massive hit with One Bad Apple. The world screamed for them. Osmond mania took over. Marie watched it all unfold while carrying equipment and singing harmonies at home. She loved country music and dreamed of a quieter path, but her parents had other plans. From the age of 5, she trained daily. Vocal drills, dance practice, script memorization. School happened through mailed lessons between tour stops. There were no playground afternoons, no sleepovers, just work. The pressure settled into her body early. At 8 years old, she became painfully aware of how she looked under stage lights. Costumes felt tighter. Mirrors felt cruel. Comments from adults stung deeper than they should have. That silent battle would follow her for decades. Then, in 1973, everything changed again. She recorded a simple demo of Dolly Parton's Coat of Many Colors at home, just singing for fun. The tape reached MGM Records, and suddenly she was in Nashville recording her first album. Paper Roses was released that August. By September, it hit #1 on the country charts and climbed high on the pop charts too. At 14, she became the youngest female artist to top the country chart while also breaking into the Hot 100. Fans saw a sweet girl with a clear voice. What they did not see was the exhaustion building behind her smile. Puberty arrived at the worst time. Her voice shifted. Her body changed fast. She was pushed into non-stop promotion and long tours. State fairs packed with 20,000 people became her normal. She performed in the heat, in heavy costumes, sometimes fainting backstage, before walking right back out for an encore. Managers told her to push through. She did. Around that same time, something darker happened. As a young girl, she was assaulted by someone with access backstage. Her parents sat unaware just feet away in the audience. She buried the memory for years, but the shame and confusion stayed. By 13, bulimia had taken hold. Producers called her fat at 103 pounds. One told her she was embarrassing the show and risking hundreds of jobs. She starved herself down to 93 pounds, surviving on lemon water mixtures and fear. She smiled on camera and vomited in private. In 1974, she and her brother Donnie recorded "I'm Leaving It All Up to You." What began as a simple duet turned into a major hit. Their chemistry was undeniable. Soon, they were headlining together. By 1976, they launched their own ABC variety show. Marie was just 16. The show drew millions of viewers every week. Glittering costumes, comedy sketches, celebrity guests, ice skating routines she had to learn quickly just to keep up. It looked magical on television. Off stage, it was relentless. 18-hour days became standard. Rehearsals blurred into tapings. Ratings soared while her health crumbled. She kept purging. She kept dieting. She kept performing. The world saw energy. She felt emptiness. When the show ended in 1979, exhaustion hit hard. Disco was rising. Teen idol fever cooled. The bright lights dimmed. Around the same time, her relationship with Andy Gibb began. He was charming and talented, but addiction followed him everywhere. She loved him, yet she could not save him. His drug use spiraled. Her family worried. The relationship ended in heartbreak. Years later, when he died at 30, she mourned what might have been. She tried to build a quieter life. In 1982, she married Steve Craig. Their son Stephen was born soon after. But fame and constant travel strained the marriage. By 1985, they divorced. The same year, she made a powerful comeback in country music with "There's No Stoppin' Your Heart," scoring 2 #1 hits. Career revival gave her strength, but personally, she felt drained. In 1986, she married Brian Blosel. Together, they built a large family, welcoming 7 children, including 5 through adoption. On the surface, it looked stable. Underneath, old wounds still lived. In 1999, after the birth of her son Matthew, postpartum depression hit with crushing force. She felt trapped inside her own mind. One day, overwhelmed and convinced her children would be better without her, she drove for hours along the Pacific Coast Highway with no clear plan to return. Her husband eventually reached her. She came home and sought treatment. Speaking openly about it later helped other women feel less alone. Then in 2007, while competing on Dancing with the Stars, she faced another public blow. Larry King questioned her on live television about her teenage son Michael's stay in rehab. She defended him fiercely. Addiction had touched her family deeply. In 2010, tragedy struck when Michael took his own life at 18. The grief was unimaginable, yet 2 weeks later, she returned to the stage. Performing was how the Osmonds survived pain. It was what they knew. Her marriage to Brian ended that same year, after more than 2 decades. Later, she remarried Steve Craig, finding comfort in familiar ground. Through lawsuits with longtime managers, career ups and downs, and endless headlines, she kept moving forward. She and Donnie built a long-running Las Vegas residency that lasted over a decade. Night after night, they stepped onto the stage again. Marie Osmond's life has always been lived in the public eye. People saw the smiles, the songs, the bright lights. But behind that shine, there were moments that felt almost impossible to carry. One of the deepest wounds came from the life of her adopted son, Michael Blosel. Michael was born in 1991. From the outside, he looked like a normal kid growing up in a famous family. But inside, he was fighting battles that most people around him could not see. By the time he was only 12 years old, he was already in rehab. Addiction had crept into his life early, and along with it came something even more painful: bullying. Kids mocked him for trying to stay sober. They made him feel strange and different. Marie later shared that the messages he received were cruel beyond belief. Even close to the end of his life, he was still getting texts that made him feel like he did not belong anywhere. Through all of it, she tried to hold him close. She believed love could pull him through. During her run on Dancing with the Stars in 2009, Michael attempted to take his life while he was in rehab. Marie rushed to him and held him tight. He looked at her and promised there would be no more attempts. She believed him with her whole heart. For a moment, it felt like the storm had passed, but it had not. On February 26, 2010, Michael went to his fashion design class at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles. It was an ordinary day on the surface. After class, he returned to his apartment. He texted a female friend. Then he wrote a note that spoke about years of depression and feeling like he had no real friends. Soon after that, he stepped outside and jumped from the 8th floor. He was only 18 years old. Neighbors later placed flowers below the building where he fell. A quiet tribute grew there, one small bouquet after another. Marie was in Las Vegas when the call came from the coroner. She was rushing through the chaos of preparing for a show when her world suddenly stopped. Days later, she tried to keep going, but the weight of grief was too heavy. During a Dancing with the Stars appearance, she collapsed, her strength finally breaking under the pain. Later, she spoke about it on Oprah. She said the loss rippled through the entire family. Faith held them together as they tried to move forward with the 7 children who were still with them. But inside, she wrestled with dark questions that would not leave her mind. Sometimes she wondered if she had failed him. Sometimes she wondered if he had been happier without her. Those thoughts haunted her because she knew the shadows of depression all too well. Years earlier, she had walked through that darkness herself. At the same time, her marriage to Brian Blosel was quietly falling apart. They had married in 1986 when she was still young. Over the years, they built a large family with 7 children, 5 of them adopted. From the outside, their life looked full and happy. But the truth was more complicated. After the birth of their son Matthew, Marie fell into severe postpartum depression. One night, the pain became so overwhelming that she drove away from home, convinced that her children might be better without a mother like her. Her muscles locked up, her mind raced, and she truly believed she had reached the end. Eventually, she found her way back to her family, and the marriage continued, but the cracks never fully healed. Years passed, and the quiet unhappiness stayed there beneath the surface. Marie later described that period of her life as faithful but unfulfilled. Then, in 2005, something happened that forced everything into the open. Their home in Orem, Utah, caught fire. Marie was speaking in California when it happened. Brian rushed the children out of the house while flames tore through what had once been their perfect home. When Marie heard the news, she felt something shift inside her. She later said the fire felt like a wake-up call. It was as if something deep inside was telling her that the life she had built was no longer real. 2 years later, in March 2007, the marriage quietly ended. The divorce was respectful, and both of them promised to keep their children first. But Marie later admitted that the fire had helped her see the truth. She had spent many years trying to hold together something that no longer worked. Even while she faced those personal storms, the wider Osmond family was dealing with painful struggles of their own. Her brother Wayne once battled a dangerous brain tumor hidden behind his cerebellum. The headaches were so intense that sometimes his knees would give out while he was performing on stage. Doctors eventually performed a 17-hour surgery to remove the tumor. Radiation treatments followed, and he lost his hair. But only 6 months later, he was back on tour wearing a cowboy hat and smiling again. Other family members faced their own hardships too. Her brother Jay survived a mini-stroke after his blood pressure shot dangerously high during a period of stress. A few years later, tragedy struck his family when his wife's young granddaughter was crushed by a falling trailer door during a move. The little girl was only 7. Then there was Alan and his son David, both fighting a form of multiple sclerosis that slowly weakens the body over time. Even through the illness, they rarely complained. Watching so many people she loved face illness and loss pushed Marie toward something bigger than herself. She poured her energy into the Children's Miracle Network, raising millions of dollars to help sick children across the country. Turning pain into purpose became her way of surviving. Not long after all of this, another chapter of her life unfolded in front of millions of television viewers. In 2007, she joined Season 5 of Dancing with the Stars. At 48 years old, she trained for hours every day with her partner, Jonathan Roberts. Rehearsals often stretched to 12 hours, while smoke from wildfires filled the California air. Even through the exhaustion, she kept pushing forward and eventually reached the finale. On November 27th, she placed 3rd in the competition. It should have been a moment of celebration, but only seconds after the results were announced, heartbreaking news reached her. Her father had just died. The shock hit her all at once. Backstage, her body simply gave out. She collapsed in front of her children, her brother Jimmy, and the paramedics rushing in to help. For nearly half a minute, she lay motionless while her kids cried out for her to wake up. Jonathan held her head in his arms as the crowded ballroom fell silent. Later, she explained that her body had been pushed too far. Dieting had lowered her potassium levels. Dehydration, asthma, and the smoky air had drained the last of her strength. Yet even that painful moment became something meaningful. She used the attention to speak openly about postpartum depression and mental health. And when she finally woke up after fainting on live television, she looked around and joked with her usual humor that she had just passed out in front of millions of people. The show changed her life in other ways, too. All those intense dance rehearsals helped her lose 20 pounds. After the show, she continued her health journey with Nutrisystem and dropped another 30 pounds in only a few months. Soon, rumors started spreading that she had secretly gone through surgery to lose weight so quickly. Marie shut those rumors down immediately. She said there was no secret operation and no magic trick. She simply changed how she ate, exercised regularly, and focused on taking care of her body instead of starving it. She began eating smaller meals throughout the day, drinking plenty of water, and choosing healthier food. The results stayed with her for years. Around the same time, another surprising turn arrived in her personal life. In 2011, she remarried her first husband, Stephen Craig. The two had been married briefly in the early 1980s before life pulled them apart. Decades later, they quietly found their way back to each other. Their wedding took place in the Las Vegas Mormon Temple, followed by a small celebration at home. Not everyone in the family felt comfortable at first. Her son, Stephen, who had grown up through the earlier divorce, was nervous about seeing his parents together again. He worried that the same pain might repeat itself. But over time, those fears softened as the family found a new rhythm. While her personal life slowly found balance again, her career took an unexpected turn that surprised even the skeptics. In 2008, she joined her brother Donnie for a residency show at the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas. At first, it was planned to last only 6 weeks. Many people assumed it would be a short, nostalgic run for fans who remembered their old television days. Instead, it exploded into something much bigger. Night after night, the small theater filled with cheering audiences. Glittering costumes, playful sibling jokes, and classic songs brought the crowd to life. What started as 6 weeks turned into 11 years and more than 1,700 performances. Nearly 900,000 fans came through those doors. For Marie, the show became more than entertainment. It became a steady place in a life that had often felt chaotic. On that stage with her brother, she found laughter again, even after all the pain she had carried. After her long Las Vegas run slowed down around 2020, many people expected Marie Osmond to quietly disappear into retirement. But that never happened. Instead, she stepped into a new chapter of her life, one that felt calmer but also more personal. In the early 2020s, she released an album called Unexpected. The sound surprised even longtime fans because it leaned into operatic pop rather than the soft country style people remembered from her younger years. It was her way of saying she had grown, and she was not the same girl from the 1970s anymore. Around the same time, she also began exploring social media in a playful way. By 2023, she had joined TikTok and started sharing short videos that felt warm and casual. Sometimes she showed simple eye makeup tricks. Other times, she talked about everyday life with the relaxed tone of someone chatting across a kitchen table. What made people stay was not perfection, but honesty. Her books and interviews had already opened the door to deeper topics such as faith, divorce, miscarriage, and adoption. When she spoke about those moments, she sounded like someone who had cried quietly in dressing rooms, prayed backstage before walking on stage, and slowly learned that taking care of her own mental health did not mean losing the bright smile people loved. That honesty carried into another area people rarely expected from someone who grew up inside the picture-perfect Osmond image. Marie began speaking openly about body image and mental health, and the details were difficult to hear because they revealed how much pressure had followed her since she was young. She explained that years of harsh comments from producers and television executives made her feel as if her body was never good enough. Over time, that pressure turned into body dysmorphia, a way of seeing herself that focused only on flaws. Even as an adult, she struggled with bulimia relapses. She later explained that it was not about discipline or willpower. It was about shame that had stayed buried for years. She described moments when she secretly vomited between television cues, terrified someone on set might notice. When she became a mother, the emotional struggle deepened in a different way. After the birth of her 7th child, she experienced postpartum depression and decided to speak about it publicly. She wrote about those feelings in Behind the Smile and later discussed them in major interviews. For many mothers listening, her words felt like permission to admit they were struggling too. Suddenly, women who had believed they were broken or failing began to see they were simply human. Even with all the public attention, Marie often said that her real center was always her family. Over the years, she found herself pulled back toward a quieter life, far away from the bright lights that once defined her career. She eventually reunited with her first husband, Steve Craig, and together they built a peaceful home life in Utah. The move changed the rhythm of her days. Instead of constant travel and rehearsals, she spent more time with her children and her growing group of grandchildren. She often joked that being a grandmother felt like having children again, but with far less stress and far more laughter. By 2024 and early 2025, photos comparing her younger face from the 70s to her current appearance began spreading across the internet. Some viewers were fascinated while others turned cruel, claiming she looked like a different person or even suggesting she was an imposter. The online noise became so harsh that in April 2025, she stepped away from social media for a while. She explained that protecting her peace mattered more than arguing with strangers. Meanwhile, the photos she shared from Utah felt simple and warm. In them, she was not posing under studio lights. She was laughing with grandchildren in the yard, looking relaxed and comfortable, as if the real Marie had stepped away from the stage and into the life she had always wanted. That quiet life also deepened her connection to charity work, something that had been part of the Osmond family long before fame arrived. Marie often explained that her parents raised 10 children in a home where money was tight, but compassion was never missing. Even when the family had little to give, they still believed helping others mattered. That lesson stayed with her. Over the years, she supported causes related to mental health, eating disorder recovery, and women's wellness. Much of the work happened quietly, without cameras or publicity. She preferred it that way because she never wanted generosity to feel like promotion. In recent years, the network of charities connected to the Osmond family has helped raise massive amounts of funding for hospitals, therapy programs, and support groups. At the same time, the family has faced its own share of health struggles, including cancer battles, heart problems, and mental health crises. Some people even began referring to it as the Osmond curse. Marie often pushed back against that idea by turning hardship into motivation. Instead of hiding pain, she used it as a reason to support research, treatment, and community care for others facing the same battles. Then, another wave of attention arrived in 2026, when internet videos began comparing Marie's appearance from the 1970s to her recent photos. The clips spread across YouTube, with titles claiming she looked as if she were aging backward. People zoomed into old interviews and new appearances, studying her jawline and smooth skin while debating what had changed. The conversation grew louder when Marie herself spoke honestly about some of the treatments she used. She openly admitted to Botox and laser treatments, and also talked about having breast reduction surgery years earlier because of back pain. At the same time, she firmly denied having major facial surgery. That mix of honesty and mystery only made the discussion grow. For many fans, the real story was not about procedures, but about presence. She refused to fade quietly from the spotlight. Instead, she continued planning new music, smaller live shows, and even the possibility of a comeback special that would reconnect her with the audience that first discovered her decades earlier. Yet, behind the public success and polished smile, there were also much deeper scars that had shaped her life. When Marie was only 8 or 9 years old, she experienced sexual abuse from an older man. She never publicly revealed his name, even years later when she wrote about the experience in her memoir. The silence did not erase the impact. She later explained that the abuse changed the way she saw her own body. Instead of feeling normal, she began believing something was wrong with her. That belief slowly grew into body dysmorphia and eating disorders. As a teenager and young adult, she cycled through starving, binge eating, and purging while hoping that if she became thin enough, the shame might disappear. For a time, the trauma even left her confused about her feelings toward men, because the memory of that early violation made trust feel impossible. Outwardly, she remained the cheerful Osmond sister, smiling on television and performing for millions. Inside, she was quietly carrying pain that few people around her truly understood. The pressures of fame also created difficult relationships within the business side of her career. For more than 3 decades, she worked with a powerful music manager named P. Carl Engelmann. He helped guide her television appearances, albums, and major deals, including the famous Las Vegas residency she shared with her brother Donnie. But in 2009, the partnership collapsed. Marie fired him and accused him of making harmful comments about her and mishandling certain financial matters. Legal documents suggested there had been disagreements over deals and commissions. Engelmann strongly denied the accusations and filed his own claim, saying he had spent decades building her career. The dispute quickly turned public and revealed how complicated long professional relationships can become when money, loyalty, and control collide. What had once been a partnership built on trust suddenly became a legal battle that played out in front of the media. Years earlier, another painful chapter had unfolded through her relationship with singer Andy Gibb. In the late 1970s, their romance looked like something from a fairy tale. Both came from famous musical families, and the public loved seeing them together. But Andy's growing addiction problems soon began to unravel that story. He started missing performances and canceling appearances as his personal struggles deepened. Eventually, the relationship could not survive the chaos around him. Many years later, during a live television interview in 2007, the topic came up again. Marie tried to speak gently about their past, but the conversation turned emotional when questions focused too heavily on his decline. She explained that loving someone was not always enough to save them from addiction. At some point, she had to step away to protect her own well-being. The moment became a raw reminder that sometimes survival means letting go, even when the heart still cares. Another turning point arrived during her marriage to Brian Blosel. They married in 1986 and for years appeared to be a stable couple, raising a large family that included both biological and adopted children. Yet beneath the surface, the relationship had grown strained. Marie later admitted she had been unhappy for a long time, but kept pushing forward out of responsibility to her family. Then, in 2005, a fire broke out in their home. No one was seriously hurt, but the experience shook her deeply. She later described the event as a wake-up call that forced her to face truths she had avoided. The comfortable image of her marriage suddenly felt fragile. Not long afterward, the couple divorced in 2007. Marie rebuilt her life during the years that followed, pouring energy into her work and reconnecting with her children while slowly finding emotional balance again. Perhaps the most heartbreaking chapter came with the loss of her son Michael in 2010. He had struggled with depression and addiction for years and had also faced intense bullying during school. Marie later explained that he often felt isolated, especially when he tried to stay sober while other teenagers around him continued partying. The loneliness slowly weighed on him. He had promised his mother that he would seek help and attend rehab, and for a time she believed that promise would guide him toward recovery. But depression can be a heavy shadow. When Michael died by suicide, the grief shook her deeply. She later spoke about the pain of believing she might have done more, while also reminding other parents that love alone cannot always save someone battling severe mental illness. Her openness about that loss helped many families facing similar tragedies feel less alone.